China Railway's 8419 was built by the Daitong Locomotive Works in Daitong, China in 1989 and is the 8419th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 282 Mikado type steam locomotive and is a JS class steam locomotive. It was purchased when it came out of the factory, and some of the crews of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad purchased the locomotive when they went over to China to make arrangements to purchase it. Also, the cost was $350,000, including a shipping cost over $100,000. A lot of people were thinking that this was actually the last commercially built steam locomotive in the world, but technically the subject steam engine that I'm currently talking about isn't the last commercially built steam engine on the planet. But in reality, the last commercially built steam locomotive is actually another Mikado, but is an SY class steam locomotive and is the SY 1772. That one was built by the Tangshan Locomotive Works in Tangshan, China in 1999. It is also still in the country was built in, and China was the last country to commercially build steam locomotives as well. About this locomotive, it also has a vintage look, but was built in the late 1980s. So when the locomotive was purchased by Boone and Scenic, this is what happened. Back in 1988, the National Geographic came in the mail to one of the volunteers and showed a page of a brand new steam engine that was under construction. And the idea came to the founding board of directors while the railroad was trying to figure out how to fix up a couple steam engines and thought it'd be cheaper to buy a new one. Also, when the locomotive was ready to depart China, it was being loaded onto a ship at a harbor in China, and when the locomotive arrived in the United States, it was being unloaded from the ship in Long Beach, California. They dropped it and rigged it up and brought it over to put on a flat car, and they heard a big bang. The sling that was underneath the locomotive to raise it up flipped up underneath the cab and bent it upward. When it was unloaded from the ship in California, it was loaded onto a flat car for its journey to its new home in Iowa. Once it arrived, it was repaired by the railroad and they were able to get it running again. This was the first steam locomotive to be shipped to the country from China. Also, the locomotive had a red metal arch banner over the headlight on the smokebox door with Chinese notes and a gold star on top and a red metal rectangular board with Chinese letterings as well. And they're in storage currently. Also, one time I've been informed by a volunteer that they may not plan to remount those on the locomotive because they probably want to avoid having to remove them and reassemble them so much. It all translates in Chinese. We are friends in the world. Even though our two countries are far apart, we feel like close neighbors. The locomotive's tender used to have Chinese notes on it, which translates in Chinese, the locomotive is a dragon that swims through the blue ocean between two friendly nations. Then, later got repainted and stenciled with the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad logo as well. There are even Chinese letters and words all around the locomotive in certain areas, including the tender, and also this represents that the locomotive was made in China. It was out of service for the 2002 season for a 1472 inspection and to comply with new FRA regulations. Also, it started running Saturdays in 2003, and it is used for operations from Memorial Day to the end of October, mostly on weekends. Also, the locomotive's whistle was originally a 5-chime it had. Then it was given a new whistle, which is a whistle that appears to have been built for an American-style steam locomotive. Some years later, it was given the nickname Iwin, although it was never built in the USA. Also, the locomotive was added with a second whistle valve, which the second whistle is a Hancock whistle. Also in 2015, it temporarily had Minneapolis and St. Louis 280 457's whistle in the whistle valve for a while, and this was arranged by the Friends of the 457. Also, the 457 is up in Mason City, Iowa at East Park. Also, this locomotive is one of many JS class steam locomotives still around, and the others are in China. Also, the locomotive stopped running after operation in 2017 and was taken out of service for an overhaul. It's been years being repaired before it could operate again. Then in 2023 it finally steamed up once again as well, and still operating on the railroad and pulling the excursion train through the Des Moines River Valley as well. It can often be seen steaming and exciting rail fans and even pulling the excursion trains on the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad from Boone, Iowa to Fraser, Iowa as well.